People online are split about this.
The View is off the air, finally.
Morgan Freeman has always been a man of profound words and unmatched gravitas, but his recent remarks on The View have taken the internet by storm, sparking one of the most heated debates in recent memory. You think you know Morgan Freeman, the wise narrator with the golden voice, the Hollywood legend who's graced our screens for decades. But what he said during this interview might make you see him in an entirely new light. Buckle up, because what started as a routine celebrity appearance turned into a cultural flashpoint that no one saw coming.
I said something that I feel a responsibility for not leaving unexamined because my words upset so many people.
Picture this: Freeman, sitting calmly in a chair, looking every bit the legend that he is. The audience leans in, expecting the usual anecdotes about his career, maybe some behind-the-scenes tidbits about his latest project, The Grey House, a Civil War-era drama he's been passionately promoting. Instead, what they got was something far more raw, far more real. Freeman didn't waste time diving into the deep end. He started with a searing critique of Black History Month, a topic that's been debated for years, but rarely with the kind of clarity and conviction that he brought to the table. He called it an insult, plain and simple.
Black History Month you find
ridiculous.
Why?
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month?
For Freeman, this wasn't just about the length of February. It was about the principle of relegating an entire history, a shared history, to a single month. My history is American history, he declared. And you could feel the weight of those words ripple through the room. The audience was stunned, their applause hesitant at first, but growing louder as the truth of what he was saying sank in. Freeman wasn't there to sugarcoat anything. He was there to challenge the narratives we've all been taught to accept without question. What's remarkable is that this isn't the first time Freeman has voiced his disdain for Black History Month. In fact, he's been consistent about this for years, dating back to a 2005 interview where he famously told journalist Mike Wallace that the very concept of Black History Month was ridiculous.
Oh, well, come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
Do you want one?
No.
I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month.
Fast forward to now, and Freeman's words are just as provocative, just as necessary. But this time, he went even further. He called out the term African American as another insult, saying he doesn't subscribe to it. What does it even mean? He questioned, leaning forward as if daring anyone to give him an answer he'd accept. You say Africa as if it's a country when it's a continent like Europe. Most Black people in this part of the world are mongrels mixed with all kinds of other things. So why do we keep using these labels that don't even make sense? Freeman's comment struck a nerve, and not just with the audience in the studio. Social media erupted almost immediately after the segment aired. Fans and critics alike flooded platforms with their takes, some praising Freeman for his honesty and others accusing him of being out of touch. But if there's one thing Freeman has always been, it's unapologetically himself. He didn't backtrack, didn't soften his stance. And you could tell he had no intention of doing so. This wasn't about courting favor or stirring up controversy for the sake of it. This was about speaking a truth that he felt too many people were afraid to confront.
Pretty good, huh? Remember the old days when you could turn on network television and hear something that actually made sense?
And here's the thing, Freeman's critique isn't just about semantics or surface-level grievances. It's about the systemic issues that underpin these kinds of symbolic gestures. By relegating Black history to a single month, Freeman argues, society is effectively saying, here's your time, now let's move on. It's a token effort that, in his view, does more harm than good because it separates Black history from the broader narrative of American history, as though the two are somehow distinct. If you don't know your past, if you don't remember it, you are bound to repeat it, he said, his voice carrying the kind of authority that only comes with decades of lived experience.
It's all of this sort of symbolic silliness, but the real moment in that, the kernel in that little video there, is when Morgan Freeman looks directly at Mike Wallace after he says he's Jewish, and he goes, do you want one? Meaning, do you want a month, a Jewish History Month? Maybe there is one. I actually don't even know. They probably added one since. Do you want one? And Mike Wallace is right. No, whoa, why would I want one of those, man? I don't want that.
What made Freeman's comments even more powerful was the context in which they were delivered. He wasn't just there to talk about his personal beliefs, he was there to promote The Grey House, a series that shines a light on the often overlooked contributions of Black Union spies during the Civil War. The timing couldn't have been more fitting. Here was a man who has spent his life telling stories, both on screen and off, using his platform to amplify voices that history has tried to erase. And yet, even now, he finds himself fighting against narratives that continue to marginalize Black contributions to American history. The audience at The View was clearly unprepared for the depth of Freeman's critique. The hosts, too, seemed caught off guard, their usual banter replaced with wide-eyed silence as Freeman dismantled the idea of Black History Month and the labels society uses to define race. Even Whoopi Goldberg, a legend in her own right, seemed momentarily at a loss for words. When she finally did respond, it was with a nod of agreement. "Morgan, you're right," she said, her voice softer than usual. This is the kind of conversation we need to be having, not just here, but everywhere. But the producers of the show? That's a different story. As Freeman continued touching on Hollywood's role in perpetuating these issues, the segment was abruptly cut short. Coincidence? Maybe. But anyone watching could feel the tension in the room, the unspoken sense that Freeman's words were pushing the limits of what the show, and perhaps its network, was willing to handle. As the cameras cut to commercial, the audience erupted into a standing ovation, a rare moment of unity in a world often divided. But the applause wasn't enough to drown out the lingering question. Why was the segment cut off, just as it was getting to the heart of the matter?
Morgan Freeman's broad point there is stop talking about it, meaning the more you obsess over it, the more you make it feel real. And the more that it feels real, the more people will act on that fake realism. And we'll all walk around thinking that everything is racist.
The answer, of course, depends on who you ask. Some insiders claim it was a simple case of running out of time, while others suggest that producers were uneasy about the direction the conversation was heading. Either way, the decision to end the segment only added to the controversy, with fans taking to social media to demand answers. Morgan Freeman was dropping truth bombs, and they couldn't handle it, one viewer tweeted. Their frustration echoed in thousands of retweets and likes. Another wrote, "If Morgan Freeman can't speak his mind on a platform like this, then what hope do the rest of us have?" But Freeman didn't seem fazed. In fact, his calm demeanor throughout the segment, and even as it was cut short, only reinforced his message. He wasn't there to argue or to win anyone over. He was there to tell the truth as he sees it, to use his platform to spark a conversation that desperately needs to happen. And judging by the reaction, he succeeded. For Freeman, this isn't just about airing grievances, it's about accountability. It's about holding Hollywood, the media, and society at large responsible for the stories they choose to tell and the ones they choose to ignore. It's about asking the hard questions, even when the answers make us uncomfortable. And it's about reminding us all that history isn't just something we look back on. It's something we carry with us, something that shapes who we are and who we can become.
As we come to the end of Black History Month, we want to take another look at everyone that we've honored this year.
As Freeman's words continue to reverberate across social media, classrooms, and even boardrooms, one thing is clear: this conversation is far from over. Whether you agree with him or not, you can't deny the power of his message, or the courage it takes to deliver it in a world that so often prefers comfort over truth. And if Freeman has taught us anything, it's that the most important stories are the ones that make us think, the ones that challenge us to see the world and ourselves in a new light. And just like that, the stage was set for one of the most intense cultural debates of the year. But this was only the beginning.
Which, by the way, is American history.
I can't believe the life went like that.
Yeah, we used to joke that it's only 28 days.
The shortest month.
It's the shortest month. And
This year, at least, we got one extra.
We got an extra day.
The aftermath of Morgan Freeman's fiery segment on The View was nothing short of explosive. If you thought the conversation was going to end when the cameras cut away, think again. In fact, what happened after that abrupt commercial break has fueled a firestorm of debate that's still raging both online and off. Freeman, with his calm yet commanding presence, had managed to turn what should have been a simple promotional interview into a cultural reckoning. And now, the ripple effects of his words are being felt far beyond the walls of that studio. Let's set the scene. The production crew at The View had barely wrapped up the segment when social media lit up like a fireworks display. Within minutes, clips of Freeman's comments were making the rounds, with captions like, "Morgan Freeman just destroyed Black History Month in the best way possible," and "This is why he's a legend." Fans were quick to praise his bravery, calling him a truth teller in an industry that often thrives on surface-level soundbites. But not everyone was clapping. Critics accused him of being out of sync with modern conversations around race and identity, with some even going so far as to call his perspective divisive. But Freeman's remarks weren't just a viral moment. They were a cultural grenade tossed into the heart of an ongoing debate about how history is taught, remembered, and celebrated. For years, Black History Month has been both a symbol of progress and a lightning rod for criticism. On one hand, it's a time to honor the contributions of Black Americans who have shaped this country, from Frederick Douglass to Maya Angelou. On the other hand, as Freeman so pointedly argued, it condenses centuries of history into a single month, often reducing complex stories to bite-sized narratives designed for convenience rather than depth. And Freeman isn't alone in his critique. Even Harvard historian Carter G. Woodson, the man credited with founding History Week back in 1926, which later expanded into Black History Month, once said the goal was never to isolate Black history, but to fully integrate it into the broader American story.
Whoopi has to rest her ginormous mouth in bad attitude.
Freeman's remarks about Black History Month were just one part of the discussion. The real controversy arose when he reinforced his opposition to the term African American. This was not the first time he had spoken against it, but restating his stance in such a public setting reignited old debates. He expressed frustration over the way Africa is often treated as if it were a single country rather than a continent. He also questioned the logic behind using labels that do not accurately reflect the diverse backgrounds of most Black people in the Western world. His comments struck a nerve, challenging not only the language used, but also the assumptions behind it. While some viewers appreciated his candor, others emphasized the complexities of identity and the importance of self-definition. The backlash was swift and relentless. Social media became a battlefield, with hashtags like Morgan Freeman and Black History is American History trending for days. Some critics accused Freeman of being dismissive of the struggles Black Americans have faced in claiming their identity. Easy for him to say, one tweet read, "He's a Hollywood A-lister. The rest of us don't have that luxury." Others argued that Freeman's perspective was outdated, a relic of a bygone era when assimilation was seen as the ultimate goal. But Freeman's supporters were just as vocal, praising him for his willingness to speak his mind, even if it meant going against the grain. Morgan Freeman is saying what so many of us have been thinking, one Facebook comment read, "Why should we accept labels that don't reflect who we really are?" And let's not forget Hollywood's role in all of this. Freeman didn't pull any punches when it came to calling out the entertainment industry for its part in shaping and often distorting narratives about race. During the interview, he touched on the lack of representation he experienced growing up, saying, "When I was a kid, we didn't see ourselves, and if we did, it wasn't as the hero." He went on to criticize the progress Hollywood claims to have made, arguing that it's often more performative than genuine. "Here we are, decades later, and the problem hasn't disappeared, it's just evolved," he said. And if anyone knows the ins and outs of Hollywood, it's Morgan Freeman. With a career spanning more than 5 decades, he's seen firsthand how the industry has struggled and often failed to tell stories that truly reflect the diversity of the world we live in.
Black history is American history.
How are we going to get rid of racism until...
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. I know you as Mike Wallace. You know me as Morgan Freeman. You want to say, well, I know this white guy named Mike Wallace. You know what I'm saying?
One particularly poignant moment came when Freeman brought up the stories that remain untold, like those of Black battalions who fought in the Civil War. This was a perfect segue into his latest project, The Gray House, a historical drama about Union spies during the Civil War. Freeman serves as an executive producer on the series, which he described as an opportunity to shine a light on the contributions of people who have been largely erased from history. It's so wide-ranging, he said of the series. There are so many people in the story because we're acknowledging they were there. It didn't just happen to one group of people. His words served as a reminder that history is never as simple as the textbooks make it out to be, and that the stories we choose to tell say as much about us as the events themselves. But here's where things get even more interesting. Rumors began swirling almost immediately after the segment aired that producers at The View had been uneasy about the direction Freeman was taking. According to some insiders, there was a palpable tension in the room as Freeman spoke, with producers allegedly scrambling to figure out how to rein him in. One anonymous source claimed the decision to cut the segment short was deliberate, a move designed to redirect the conversation before it veered too far off course. Of course, The View's team denied these allegations, saying the segment simply ran out of time, but viewers weren't buying it. And then there was the fallout. In the days following the broadcast, Freeman's comments continued to dominate headlines, sparking think pieces, op-eds, and even classroom discussions. Educators began using clips of the segment to spark conversations about representation and the ways history is taught in schools. Activists pointed to Freeman's words as a wake-up call, urging society to rethink not just how we celebrate Black history, but how we integrate it into the broader narrative of American history. Even Hollywood heavyweights weighed in. Several actors and filmmakers came out in support of Freeman, praising him for his courage and calling for more honest storytelling in the industry. One prominent director tweeted, "Morgan Freeman isn't just speaking for himself. He's speaking for all of us who are tired of seeing the same stories told through the same lens." But not everyone in the entertainment world was on board. Some critics accused Freeman of being overly critical, arguing that Hollywood has made significant strides in recent years. "You can't deny the progress we've made," one producer said in an interview. But change takes time, and we're moving in the right direction. Through it all, Freeman remained silent, letting his words and the conversations they sparked speak for themselves. For a man who spent his career lending his voice to some of the most iconic roles in film, his decision to stay out of the fray was telling. It wasn't about him, he seemed to be saying. It was about the message. And that message was resonating loud and clear. As Morgan Freeman's powerful words continue to echo, sparking conversations and debates across the globe, it's clear that this is just the beginning of a much larger dialogue. So, let's keep the conversation going. Do you think Black History Month should be integrated into the broader American history narrative? Or does it deserve its own dedicated time? And how do you feel about the labels we use to define race and identity? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's engage, let's discuss, and let's learn from each other. Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning. Goodbye for now.